Hey there, I'm Jackie Ferris. On this week's show, we visit the historic Peter Marsh Homestead and Gardens, where some could argue this is one of the epicenters of the arts and culture scene for the Rehobeth area. So get ready to learn some fun and creative facts. The 302 is headed your way. Hey there, we are at the Peter Marsh Homestead in the beautiful historic Homestead Gardens. I'm joined by the Executive Director of the Rehobeth Art League, Sarah Ganter. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for coming.
Let's talk a little bit about just the history behind this place. You know, a lot of people probably pass it on the street and think that's a gorgeous home, beautiful garden, but so much happened here and because of this place.
Right. Well, the original house was built in 1743 by Peter Marsh. It was inhabited by some farming families for a couple hundred years, and then it was bought by a couple, the Corcorans. Mrs. Corcoran founded the Art League in 1938, so a lot of history. So
the Corcoran family moves in, and she decides she's got a mission. She wants arts to be, you know, front and center. Talk to me about, you know, I guess her vision, and her husband had an opposite vision, right?
Not quite our opposite. They both wanted to improve the community, I would say. So Mrs. Corcoran worked with a Rehobeth Beach organization called the Village Improvement Association, and that's still in existence. It's a women's service organization. So they were starting to put on some art shows in the 1930s in town, and Mrs. Corcoran really wanted to formalize the art space for the town of Rehobeth. At that time, it was really a summer vacation destination for people. So a lot of activity here in the summer, and she developed it into really an institution where people could teach, gather, and exhibit their artwork.
Mm-hmm. So from there, it just kind of grew into this juggernaut of arts and creativity. Can you take us from the time that she started, you know, cultivating arts to where we are now?
So we're approaching 85 years in 2023. So this place has a long history. Over the decades, it's really developed into not just an arts place, but sort of a chronicle of history. We operate 5 buildings on 3.5 acres here in Henlopen Acres. We're just off the main avenue in Rehobeth, so it gets quite busy in the summer. But our organization's no longer just a summer retreat for artists. We operate year-round. So we have classes all year. Summer camps are full in the summer for kids. We have 30+ exhibitions a year that we run through here, rotating in gallery spaces. We operate a very active pottery studio, and then we also take arts education out into Sussex County. So we'll coordinate art teachers going to other parts of the county to underserved communities that might not be able to come here to experience art.
So when did the Arts League make the homestead its home?
Well, Mrs. Corcoran used to live here, so they moved in the early 30s. She passed in the 70s. Her husband had passed away prior, but once she passed away, the organization was gifted to the University of Delaware for a short time. Then it sort of reverted to, it's the Rehobeth Art League's property. So since the 70s, we've been operating here sort of independently as a nonprofit. Well, nonprofit since 38, but.
And the property is on the Historic Registry, is that right?
The house itself is on the National Register of Historic Places, yes.
That must be amazing. Do you have people that come just to see the house itself and then discover the rest of it?
Amazingly, there are a lot of people that come to campus that are Delawareans that say, I never knew about this place. So we're sort of off the busy avenue area where a lot of the vacationers go. We're sort of tucked away, but once you get here, it's sort of a magical experience, I would say, for the artists, because they can use the campus for inspiration. We have a lot of artists set up here to do painting or photography. I get a lot of requests. And then, of course, the classes use it for content too.
Sure, sure. So when we go inside the house, what kinds of things are we going to see? I know because you have it set up to kind of speak to the house's history.
So we have a permanent collection of art and antiquities, about close to 1,000 pieces. A lot of that is fine art, so painting, prints, photography, things like that. So we use the house as a showcase for our collection. That works very well with the sort of period nature of the house. And then we also populate it with antiquities, objects that were property of the Art League's founders or even descendants before that time. So we're going back a couple hundred years, but so it sort of looks like a museum when you step in there. It's a bit of a walk back into time.
Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned things from the past. You just recently received an item from someone related to someone who lived here.
Yes. So occasionally we will get donation offers from people, either of artwork by an artist that was very involved here or was a teacher here. But the recent donation we got was a set of chairs that was it was from a descendant of one of the tenant farmer families here. So the Fraser family were tenant farmers, and this is a great-great-great-grandson that he's sort of returning the chairs to the property so that they're in a good place for display and we can sort of promote the history.
Sure, kind of full circle. One of the things that really jumps out at you when you enter the home is the portrait of Mrs. Corcoran. Can you tell me about that?
So the current exhibition up there right now is all pulled from our permanent collection, and it's the theme is springtime at the homestead. So our exhibition director pulled things that are representative of the campus in the springtime. So you'll see all sorts of renditions of the garden back here, the homestead garden, or perspectives from other places on campus that you can then walk around and recognize that, oh, I saw that in the painting in the homestead. But the sort of showpiece piece of artwork in there is the portrait of Mrs. Corcoran from our collection. So that was a portrait that was done here in the garden.
Sure, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the garden when we return.
Tim Slavin from the Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs here in Delaware, help preserve history with the 302.
Welcome back. We're at the historic Homestead Garden, and it really is gorgeous when you sit here. There's so much in terms of aroma, there's so much to see, and there are 4 individual gardens in one, right?
Right, so Mrs. Corcoran developed this formal, it's sort of a formal English garden when she was living here in the 30s. So this is her vision, and we still have volunteers that maintain it in that vision with certain plantings. So some of the sections include the chain garden is sort of a rose garden area that's trained on chains. We have a crisscross garden, which literally has a crisscross path. We have a tea garden. We also have an herb garden, which might be some of the nice aroma. And I noticed some of the volunteers recover some herbs for their cooking from that, and that's good. So yeah, she has a lot of different sections laid out here, and we sort of continue that as sort of a tribute to her.
Now, I know there's a garden that has a tie to Queen Elizabeth.
Yes, the Coronation Garden, Mrs. Corcoran put in as a nod to that episode in history. So
that must have been really exciting for her. Do you know if her family, being that, you know, obviously she was affluent, did they ever have any chance to meet members of the royal family? Or
that I don't know.
You know, that's something left for speculation, I suppose. But she also had this really fascination with boxwoods, you say. Tell me about that.
So if you come to the garden, you'll see it's sort of lined along the perimeter and the exterior of the property too, with a lot of boxwood plantings. The legend goes that Mrs. Corcoran traveled up to Dover to Caesar Rodney's property to take a clipping of his boxwood, and she brought it back here to plant as a nod to Delaware history. So there's definitely a lot of intent in her garden.
Now, obviously, she must have known Caesar Rodney in order to take a clipping.
Right.
So they travel in the same circles and...
I don't think so, but
No? Well, you never know. You got to ask the questions. So
the tough question.
there's also, we were looking at the grapes over in Arbor. Tell me the history behind that.
So that was another of Mrs. Corcoran's plantings, was the grape arbor, and 70 plus years later we still get leaves and fruit on it each year. There are some special plantings around campus. We have some good tree cover, and there's actually a tree tour that you can take on campus to walk around and sort of cite different varieties of trees on campus that are sort of native to this region.
So how many different varieties would you say that you might have? I mean,
there are probably 24 things cataloged to see. That catalog was done about 20 years ago when the garden underwent a sort of thorough renovation. So there was also like a tree marking done then. So something else to see.
I know that nonprofits rely a lot on grants and donations, but the volunteers you mentioned, they really, this is a lot of work that they have to do, and you need even more help, right?
Yes. So the garden is maintained by volunteers. They often meet weekly in the summer just to do weeding or plant new things. But we also sort of keep a good overview of the plan of the garden, so we're not getting too far off of Mrs. Corcoran's plan. But the house is also staffed by volunteers. So the homestead itself, which the garden is behind, is staffed May through October, and that's all by volunteers, our docent team. So they're there every day to keep it open and provide historic information to anybody that comes by.
I would imagine gardeners are probably like, I love this place. How did you do this? Or how did you do that? Or what was the inspiration? Do you have a lot of gardeners that come to you and say, do you have blueprints? Do you have historical documents, anything? Because they want to, I don't know that you could do this in your home, but maybe you could, but I don't know. But
we do have a lot of historic documentation for the garden going back to the 30s when it was sort of mapped out on paper, what it was going to look like. And then in subsequent years, we've had a lot of involvement from organizations like the Sussex Master Gardeners. We're heavily involved here. The University of Delaware has done a lot here. In fact, I consulted them recently on the boxwoods in terms of blight or fungus that might be affecting some of the plantings. So lots of different organizations involved back here.
I can imagine it's probably quite a task, and it probably changes throughout the year in terms of, is it a continuously blooming garden? Is everything planted?
There's sort of something always in bloom on campus. You'll also notice if you walk around a lot of rhododendron, azaleas. We have some foxglove back there now, but yeah, there's definitely something to see on campus all year.
So if somebody wanted to come and check it out, what would you say the perfect way to visit this garden? What's the perfect day in this garden for a visitor?
Well, a lot of the locals, a perfect day for them is to walk down here in the morning with their coffee, and a lot of our neighbors do that. We're in a residential area, so they really appreciate just being able to stroll in or come walk their dog, or just sort of take a stroll through and see what's in bloom. For other people, the ideal day might be like in August. We have our big event of the year, which draws several thousand people. That's a 2-weekend event where we bring about 100 artists on campus, and they're set up in booths all over to showcase their artwork and sell it. So some people might like the hustle and bustle of that event. That's a community favorite, and others might like just the quiet morning.
So it's the best of both worlds in one beautiful place. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about your mission and about the events when we return. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Melissa Palercio, the Executive Director for the Center for the Creative Arts. Get creative with the 302.
Welcome back. We are in the beautiful historic homestead gardens. We're talking about not just the planting, not just the history, but the mission behind the Arts League. You have so much going on and you reach so many people. So let's just start with the stuff that you do here on campus. You have several galleries and you change out the exhibits every year. So talk to me a little bit about the average year and the number of exhibits that you bring to the community.
So really our mission, we can boil it down to teach, inspire, and preserve. So for teaching, we offer year-round classes here. A lot of traditional art forms like painting, ceramics. We've started incorporating a little bit of new media like iPhone photography, things like that. But there's always something to learn on campus for people that want to engage in that kind of stuff. We do summer camps for kids all summer, so ages 5 to 15. We're booked solid with that stuff. They love the ceramics. So we do our classes. We also do art-driven events. So I mentioned the outdoor show we have. We also each July have a cottage tour. That's more of a Rehobeth area tour of, I would call them exceptional homes in terms of art and architecture. So that's a big event for us every year. And then we also have new things. This year we just offered our Rehobeth Beach Arts Festival. And that was in May, but it was at the Circle right as you come into downtown Rehobeth, just to get out of Henlopen and Acres a little bit and more onto the avenue. So that was very popular. That also brought in artists in tents to sell their artwork.
Now, I know that you guys go out into the community. That's kind of your thing, to teach people who are vulnerable, to teach seniors and kids. Talk to me a little bit about that work.
So our arts outreach program basically takes what we do here, our mission to promote arts and arts education, and just takes it to other areas of the county that might not be able to get here. So we go to underserved communities to do arts components for after-school education, arts components for summer camps. As you mentioned, we also work with adults. Some groups that are able to come here will come here monthly. So developmentally disabled adults, teens with autism, so any kind of special needs community, we try to get to them too. And if they can come here, great. If not, we'll come to you.
Now, as far as COVID, that must have been quite a challenge for you.
Yes. So I think probably like every organization, it sort of kicked us into the 21st century where we actually had to put artwork online. So that was a big deal. We worked on our online classes very quickly to develop that. Some of it worked great, some of it, like pottery, not so great. I don't think that's going to be an at-home thing. But right now, people are really wanting to get back into the classroom for the face-to-face instruction.
So I guess you got to ramp it up for the summer, going into the fall. What can we expect to see, for the next year or so in terms of?
So I think we'll still be transitioning out of the COVID era. Our cottage tour, which I mentioned, is actually virtual this year just for health and safety reasons in the private homes. We've produced videos of each house, so we're sort of sticking with the virtual for that, but August will be in person back here for the outdoor show. So we're trying to gently transition everyone back to in-person things as they're comfortable.
Sure, I know there are a lot of people that have anxiety, so you got to go slow but steady.
Yes.
So as far as keeping, the educational piece of it and just taking care of business here. We mentioned that you guys have a lot of volunteers, but you also have to outreach. What if somebody says, you know what, I would like to donate to help with their mission, I really believe in it. What are some of the ways that they can do that? And is there a project that you guys have on your wish list that you want to get accomplished?
So many wish list projects.
I know.
No, donations are a huge part of our budget. We actually, every year we have to raise 95% of our budget. So there's not a great endowment that sustains 5 buildings and 3.5 acres, but we're working towards that. So we have to sustain ourselves on donations, memberships, and grants. So, and then any event revenue. So we got to work hard on that every year.
Sure, sure. When we talk about event revenue, when someone wants to come out to some of these things or visit the house, are there fees or tickets that they need to buy or reservations they need to make?
Actually, no. The campus is free and open to the public most of the year. When I talk about event revenue, those would only be for special events that we have that might be a couple weekends of the year. Otherwise, the galleries are always free and open to the public, and they're open almost every day during the year except New Year's Day, Easter, and Christmas Day.
And the cottage show is a good opportunity if you're looking for something nice in your home. Come.
Yep, you don't even have to come here. You can do that one from the comfort of your home.
And is there a website that they can check out to check it all out?
Yep, everything, all of our programs are detailed at rehobethartleague.org.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for spending time with us in this really gorgeous setting. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back. For more information on the historic Peter Marsh Homestead and Gardens, visit RehobethArtLeague.org. That'll do it for this episode of The 302. We leave you now with some beauty shots of this amazing garden. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on The 302.